so that you can get the tracking number of the complaint, and in your subsequent interaction you can use the tracking number to get the status of what really happened and what is the status of the complaint. So things like that can be achieved through auto launch flow. And if you need to invoke a series of actions periodically, say for example, month, weekly, or daily, you can leverage Lightning scheduler flows. So imagine, like, 3 years back when I start, or like 5 years back when I started Salesforce development, there weren't an option where you can schedule a set of actions within a time period. You need to write code here, but over here through flows, through few button clicks, you can call a series of action within a time period or in a time period. And also you can leverage no flow trigger, which is sort of a mechanism where you can call a repetitive flow through another flow. Say for example, you have already built a flow that is potentially can be used across multiple flows, and you don't want to repeat the same logic in all the places. So using no flow trigger approach, what you can do is you can create a flow, and from your other flows you can attach the repetitive flow through an element called subflow. Through that, what you can do is you can repeatedly call a logic that can be invoked from multiple places. Screen flows. Screen flows it requires a visual cue. So it needs a user interaction where user clicking on a button, or user can interact with the UI, and based on the operations or based on the input they do on the UI, a subsequent actions are triggered. Say for example, I've told you like a scenario where a user has to create 3 records when he is interacting with this customer, and screen flow is one of the best ways you can use solve all the clicks and the navigation problems when you're interacting with your customer. And even through screen flows, based on the input they give on the UI, you can like redirect the flow to a different path. Say for example, if I'm getting information about a partner, then I can, based on the drop down that you select. So let us say I'm creating a record and it contains 2 values. One is partner, the other one is customer. And if they select partner, then using ScreenFlow and few flow elements, what I can do is I can redirect them to a different path that would only specify the partner specific UI fields. And if they select customer, what I can do is based on their selection, I can redirect the flow logic to a different path where the user is presented with only customer related fields. So we have that sort of a leverage using screen flows. And since it is a screen flow and it needs a visual cue, you can use screen flow in Lightning pages, community pages, quick action, as well as even it can be invoked through Lightning component as well as Visual Force pages. And this is how you can distribute your flow. So when you open up a record detail page or a home page in Lightning Experience and you click on the edit page, you on your left hand side you will see the standard elements that is exposed by Salesforce. So out of this, one is there's something called flow, which you need to drag and drop onto your UI and select the appropriate flow that you need to launch. In addition to that, it also can be, I told you, right, flow can be also launched from a quick action. So when you expose it as a quick action, it shows up as a button in your record detail page, and clicking on it, it would launch your flow. And similarly, all the actions that you expose on your quick action can also be made available on your mobile experience. So on your mobile experience, this is how it shows if you expose a flow icon that is attached to a quick action. Lightning Flow Builder. So I told you, right, a flow contains a series of elements, right? So if you look at over here, these are the series of elements that are available in the Flow Builder, which can be used to develop your process. So we have like interaction element, logic element, and data element. Let us talk about the data element first. So data element, it all talks about creating a record, updating a collection of records, or querying the records, even like deleting the records. You can delete a record through flow. And we have like interaction element, the name itself gives away, right? So you need a visual cue there. So in order to like build your screen flow, you need to drag and drop your screen flow onto the UI. And when you like click on it, you can see a list of options that are available there, where you can drop a checkbox, a pick list, or datetime field onto the UI and start building your own screen. And actions are quick actions that is supported by your objects. So when you drag and drop your actions onto the UI, you have to select what object the action belongs to and what type of action needs to be invoked. And we talked about subflow, right? So if you have repeated logic that's there in a flow, you can develop a separate flow and call the repeated logic using subflow element. And we have something under logic, we have like three elements: assignment, decision, and loop. Assignment is normally used where you have a screen and the user are entering your details, and at the end of the day, when they are done editing, like entering the fields, you want to create them as record. So through assignment um, node, what you can do is you can assign all the values that you have collected from your UI to your variable instance or the object instance, which in turn can be leveraged by create or update record to do the DML operations. And in addition to that, we have a decision node where which would help you to decide which flow path the flow should take. So say for example, if I've told you an example where a customer, when you're as a business user, when I'm entering the record, I've selected the pick list as partner, then I have to show only partner specific screens. So if I select partners, what I'll do is I'll use the decision node to check if the value is partner. If it is partner, then I'll go to the partner UI. And if the type is customer, then what I'll do is I'll redirect to the customer screen where it shows a whole different fields. And we have another element called loop is generally used, it's like a for loop, right? So generally we use for loop because you need to do a manipulation of field, or you're finding a record. I mean, over here in flow, what you can you do is you can pass a collection to your loop, and you can inside the loop element you can configure the variables appropriately, so that it would filter the appropriate result and return back the one that we are looking for, upon which that needs to be operated. So without any delay, let us jump into the demo. So we saw, like there are like two flows are out there. One is an auto launched flow, the other one is a screen flow, right? So I've built a simple example with using the auto launched flow. So I'll tell you the example that I've built. Okay, so I've logged into Salesforce and I'm going to the tourister app. I'm clicking on contact and have Chester Spring PA. I'm selecting this account. And if you see here, I have totally 11 contacts under Chester Spring. And the use case that I've built for the auto launch flow is every time a contact gets created under an account, it should calculate how many contacts are there, and it should populate the value over here. So if there are like 5 contacts under an account, then the number of contacts should be 5. So since if you have seen here, we have 11, the value of this field number of contacts is 11. Now if I go ahead and create a new contact, I'll give my name, I'll give customer. And as soon as when I click on save, the auto launch flow behind the scene gets triggered. And what happens is the number of contacts is increased. So it matches the number of contacts that are there under the account. So I'll show you how the auto launch flow works. On your setup, so the way you need to navigate to your flow is click on the gear icon, click on the setup, search for flow. Under process automation, you will see an item called flow. Click on it, and this is the flow that I've created. So this is an auto launch flow. This is the visual designer that I'm talking about. So this is the flow builder, and you see in this, you saw in the screenshot, right? There were like, a lot of elements out there. So these are the elements that are out there. So what I did is, after you create an account contact, so I have a process builder here. A flow cannot be directly invoked. Auto launch flow cannot be directly invoked without a process. So that we need some intermediate help to do that. So what I did is, through process builder. Process builder is also an automation tool in Salesforce that whose feature now overlaps with the features of flow, but there are few exciting or like different exciting features that are there in flow which are not there in other automation tools like process builder or workflow tools. So count contact in account. This is the process builder that I've created. So it operates on a contact, and the process type is record change. So every time the contact changes, this process gets invoked. And let us see how I have configured it. So the object type is a contact, and whenever the record is created. Okay, great. So I'm not evaluating any conditions. So as soon as the record gets created, the flow gets inside this node, checks if it is contact, okay, good, and checks if I don't have here condition, just I'm executing my action. And the action that I've configured here is invoking a flow. So we have the contact counter, right? So if you see here, contact counter. So this is the flow that I'm calling. From my process builder, and I'm passing the value of the account ID from the contact and to the contact ID. So over here, the flow accepts a variable called account ID. This is there. So as soon as the record gets created, the process builder runs. Can I move this somewhere else? Okay. The process builder runs, and it invokes the contact counter, and it would pass the contact account ID to the account ID variable in the flow. And as a result, the, okay, so as a result, the contact counter flow gets executed, and I need to query the existing records of the account, right? So I have a get record element. So all you have to do is drag this and give it a name, test, and you need to select. In my case, I would select, I'm querying contacts. So no the only condition that I need is I need to query the contacts by the account ID. So I would select the account ID by the account ID that is set by the flow, the process builder, which is this. So this is the actual condition that I use. Okay, and that's what I've done here. So the object is contact, all the conditions are met, and I need to match only the contacts that is associated with the account that is passed by the process builder. And how many records to store? I'm selecting all the records, and I need all the fields. So I'm selecting this option. So done. And as soon as the record gets queried And what I have to do is I have to iterate over the records and try to count the number of contacts, correct? So as for that, I'm using a loop element. So you need to name the loop element and its API name. And over here, you need to pass the collection. You need for loop, you need an iterator collection, right? For similarly, over here, the get records will act as the collection input to the loop, and I'm passing this. So if you want to select, so all to select this, um, clear the value over here, and you will see contacts from get contacts. You need to select this, right? And specify the direction. If you want to sort it from the first element to the last or last element to the first, you can definitely do that. And usually for a for loop, you need a temporary variable, right? And each element that will be stored in a temporary variable, and whose value you can access in subsequent actions. So we have already created a temporary variable called contact idx. So every time, so if there are like 5 contacts are out there, the contact 1 will be assigned whenever I is equal to 1. If the I is equal to 2, then contact 2 gets assigned. And every time the iteration takes place, it goes here. Okay, every time, if you see the arrow here, every time the iteration takes place, it goes to the assignment node. And what I'm doing is, we have created a variable called contact account. So in order to create a variable, there is a tab called manager. And over here, what you can do is, in order to temporarily store all your state of the flow, you can leverage the new resource button and create the appropriate variable, and store them and use them in your process. So in my case, I need a counter variable that stores the number of contacts under an account, right? So what I did is, on the manager tab, I clicked on new resource, and I clicked on variable. I gave it a name, number of contacts. I'm selecting a type. This is a number, so, and this is a decimal places, and the default value is 0, because counter should start with 0. And as we iterate over each the, the number of contacts by 1, right? So this is how I did. And over here, if you can see, I created a field called contact count. So this is something that I'm using over here. So the variable of the contact count is equal to, and I need an incremental variable. So it is always, every time a contact is encountered, 0 plus 1 the first time, and the second time the contact is encountered, it is 1 plus 1. So I need some sort of a formula over here. So what I did is, I created a new variable called formula. So this is count contact formula, and I selected the formula type count formula. It is a number, and what I would do is, I have to store the intermediate variable, which is contact count, whose initial value is 0 plus 1. So the first time the contact comes inside the assignment node, it is 0 plus 1, which gets assigned back to the contact count. So at the end of the first iteration, the contact count would be 1. And the second time we encounter another contact, what happens is, the formula for the contact counter incrementer variable is contact count plus 1. So At the end of the first iteration, it is 1. Now, at the end of the second iteration, it would be 1 plus 1, 2. The same way, I'm gradually incrementing the value of contact count. Okay. And as soon as the last element is done, what I'm doing is I'm assigning to the account instance. So I told you, right, whenever you get an input from your user, you need to assign it to your instance in order to use it in your update operation. So what I did is, so in order to like, pass a collection, I mean, update records expects as a collection, I have to create a variable of type account. So in the same way, what I did is I clicked on variable, I gave it account records, I selected the record type, and I'm I'm selecting account. Okay, and this is how you create a variable. That's what I did over here. So if you see, I have a variable called account record, and it is of type record, and the object type of the record is account. So I need an instance, and in order to like update a record, I need the ID, and along with that, I have to assign the number of contacts field to the account, right? So what I'm doing is I'm using the assignment node. I gave it a name, I gave the API name, and the ID of the account. So all like the way you do it is, since you're populating the field of the account record, you need to add the flower braces, exclamation, search for account. Okay, and then ID. You need an ID for an update call. You select the ID, and what should be the value of the ID, the account dot ID. It should be the value that the flow got in the very beginning, right? So we stored the account ID information at the very beginning of the flow, so we have to assign the value of the account ID to the account dot ID field. And similarly, we are updating the records, and what we are the ID, and as well as what we are doing is we are also updating the number of contacts that are there. So I told you, right, we have this variable which intermediately stores the number of contact records that are there in the account. So after the iteration got over, it contains the updated value. So, and what we need to do is we need to assign the number of contacts to the contact number. So that's what I'm doing here. So similarly, when like you picked the account ID, you can click on the contact ID, and you have to select what field you are going to use. So I'm using number of contacts equal to what value you're going to assign. I'm going to assign the value of the contact count, and done. And finally, as soon as this is done, the instance is passed to the update node. An update node, all you need is give the name and the API name, and use the ID and all the fields from the. So you at the end of the day, you're passing the ID. You're already set the ID on the account instance, right? So that's what this option is about. And you need, at the end of the day, you need a collection to to update the record. So since we have used account record to populate the fields, we are using the same account record. So if you need to select one, the drop down over here would list you all the fields that are created. So you need to properly pick the appropriate one. So this is the field that we set in the assignments, and I'm selecting the account record and clicking on that. And once all your changes are done, all you need to do is save as, and that's it. Run your flow. And this is how usually what you can do. This is something that few years back we used to write code. We used to write at least like 15 or 20 lines of code to do this. But now through auto launch flow, you can like do achieve requirements like this through visual interface and through button clicks. That's it, very simple. Without writing a single piece of code, you are able to achieve what your business requirement, which is really great. And Yeah, this is about the auto launch flows, and I have an example for ScreenFlow. So ScreenFlow requires some sort of an UI where the user can interact with it, and based on the input that is, that the which the user enters, you can use that input to create a record. So over here, what I've done is I've simplified. I have like two objects in my org: vehicle and trip. So, and as a trip manager or tour manager, I have a few vehicle details as well as trip details with me, and I want to create them together. I mean, I don't want to, like, normally what you would do is you will go here, click new, and enter some value, P1234, select the type, 410. Okay, vehicle got created. Now I need to assign the trip. So I have to go here, new. It gets populated. I'm selecting the customer. I'll give the C details. I'll select the type and address is test one. I'll pick the time. I'll pick the status. Okay, I mean, this is how normally it works. Imagine you have, like, we can even solve this through ScreenFlow and see how I've done it. On the home page, I have a screen where I'm getting minimal information that is required to create a vehicle. So as a tool manager, I'm creating car, Ford. I'll give the model X411. I'm giving the number of seats. Next. That's it. The vehicle would be created, and here's a trip screen. So I'm selecting customer. It's a two-way trip. I need two seats. I'm entering the address details. Next, that's it. I don't need to, like, navigate to an UI and click on a new again, enter all the details again. If I need to, like, again create a new vehicle, again I have to go back to vehicles again, click on new. So you can, as administrator, as a developer, you can simplify all these things through ScreenFlow. So the vehicle and trips are created. Now if I would like to, like, launch it again, all I have to do is click on the checkbox and click on next. The same UI launches again, and you can repeat the same process again and again. And we'll see how this has been done. Okay. So we saw about auto launch flows. Now let us go and see the tour manager flow, which is a ScreenFlow. So I told you ScreenFlow requires a user interface. So I've dragged the ScreenFlow element over here. And if you open up the ScreenFlow element, it contains a blank screen normally. And all you need to do is, drop in the fields that you want to be shown on the UI. Say, for example, let us look at the records that got created. Okay, let us make a little modification, a small modification over here. If you see over here, the record that I created, uh, did I did not set the name field of the vehicle. So as a result, Salesforce automatically assigns the ID of the record. So I don't like this behavior. I need to change that. So let us see how, without even writing a code, see how simple it is. Okay, I'm creating this. I'm opening up the vehicle creation UI, and the name field, right? So we have a name field over here. I have to drag it over here. It's just a text box. This registration number. Okay, this is the API name. That's where the value of the registration number gets stored, and it is a required field. And clicking on done. Okay, and now what I have to do is I've got the details from the screen. Then I have to populate the instance of the vehicle. Now on the assignment node, I'm going to set the name field of the vehicle. Click on vehicle, search for name equal to the registration number. Done. I've saved my flow. I'm activating it. Now let me go back to the screen. Let me refresh it once. And you see, without writing a single line of code, I'm able to change my UI through drag and drop interface. Over here, I can give the registration number details, R, X, Y, YW123, number of seat is 2. I'm selecting myself as the customer. It's a one-way trip. Seat required is 2. Test, address. I'm picking the date and time and click on next. That's it. The record got created. See how simple it is, right? And how powerful flows are. Now let us see. Let us see what I have built here. So like I said, I got the input. I configured it through drag and drop interface, all the custom screen, and all the input that has been entered over here can be assigned to the vehicle. And after that, I'm creating the records. And again, what I'm trying to do here is a trip contains and lookup to vehicle. So I have to assign the created vehicle ID to the trip. So again, with the help of assignment node, I'm assigning the vehicle.id, which is the created vehicle ID, to the trip.vehicle. So if you see on the record that got created, it will have an assigned trip vehicle. So this piece of code that we have done here takes care of it. And similarly, we have a screen for to get the trip details, and we need to convert the details that we got from the trip info to an instance and create the record. And once that is done, we are asking for the user if they would like to continue the trip and vehicle creation screen. And if they click on the checkboxes whose value is continue checkbox, if you see how I have leveraged the checkbox over here. So I've had the decision node. I'm checking for if the continue checkbox value is equal to true. If it is true, then I'm going back to the actual the starting screen. If it is false, I mean, if I'm not checking that box again, let us see what happens. Click on next, selecting myself, to test. I'm not selecting this checkbox. If I click on next, that's it. The flow exits. So this is how powerful you can. This is how powerful. These are the features that are available in flow, which can be leveraged to build your business process or automation. So as admin or as administrator. Now let's go back to the presentations. Now we saw the capabilities of flow, and we'll see the advantages of what flow offers. So we have an option called before save, which gets invoked even before the workflow rules or process builder gets invoked. We have a huge order of execution step that Salesforce has behind the scene. And workflow rules and process builder, they happen later on, like whenever the record gets committed in the database, only then process builder and workflow rules get fired. But even before that, you using flow, what you can do is you can, like, through before save, you can set the values of your field based on another value. So that is really possible through flow, which really improves the number of times the record gets updated. And even through, like, what we have done here is completely through no code. We have not written a single line of code here. In some screens, like I told you earlier, there are, possibly there are requirements where you need to show the details from a third party API on your flow. So when such requirement comes up, you can, what you can do is through Apex, you can create a small Apex class through which you can query all the API details, and present that in flow. So only that piece of information requires Apex, and the rest of the flow can be developed through custom screen. And also, flow can be used with lightning app, lightning component, as well as visual force pages. Even you can, like, call Apex from flow. So, and also you can create flow as a template and distribute them, so that you don't have to start it from the scratch. They can use the template and start building their, like, changing their flow based on the individual requirement. And you can even distribute your flows through subflows. I told you, right, if you have some sort of an action that is done and in flow, you can invoke them through subflows, and through other flow through subflow. So that can be done through flows. And also you can leverage the flows that are available in the app exchange. The app exchange are nothing but a marketplace for Salesforce apps. So if you don't have a solution right now, the first thing you have to do is, if it's really complex, you have to go and explore app exchange and see if someone has solved it. If someone has solved it, then it's better to use them. Okay, it is all involved, it's based on the business. If they would like to use it, then they can, or if you want to build it, you can definitely do it, but requires a ton of work and maintenance. Again, I told you, Flow is one of the automations tool that is available in Salesforce. So you need to properly evaluate what would work for your use case. So we have tools like Process Builder, Workflow Rules, and Approval Process, which can, whose feature pretty much overlaps with the feature we have with the Flow. So things like, say for example, if it is, if the use case, or if your requirement that you're working on is complex, or if it is really simple, you can solve it with Process Builder or Workflow Rules, or even like Approval Process. And if you're looking for a visual designer interface where you can configure things, then you can use, definitely you can use Process Builder and Flow Builder. And you can, like, one of the features that aren't there with the that aren't there in the other automation tools is the ability to delete the records. So Flow Builder can delete the records, and also it can call Apex same way. Process Builder also can call an Apex. And it also supports time-based action. It also supports, and if you see here, Process Builder does not support user interaction. It does not have a visual cue. All the actions happen behind the scene. But as far as Flow Builder is concerned, you have you can, like, build your own screen to drive your process. And you can also call your Apex class, and these are the features that are there in other automations tool, which you have to, like, always evaluate before choosing the tool that would solve your business problem. Okay.